Hello and welcome to the Give Me the Remote podcast. This is episode 30, quite an auspicious one. It is the 22nd of January, a Tuesday night. My name is John. I'm joined, as ever in this pod, by Sheridan.
Hello.
And it is stinking hot in Canberra. We're in the middle of a record-breaking heatwave. Once again, we're turning down the air conditioning for your benefit and not ours.
John's in his undies.
So are you.
I think I'm in pyjamas.
You can call them pyjamas. Anyway, it's in no clothes unless the postman's at the door conditions here.
I don't even think you keep to that rule.
I have so too.
You've thought about it,
Put
though.
a little something on whenever the Amazon package arrives. Okay, what do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Once Upon a Deadpool.
Yes, the great rip-off.
So, if you're searching through iTunes and doing one of those, you're spending more time searching than you would have if you watched a movie moments, or not really a moment, it's more like an hour.
I mean, Sheridan can literally spend the entire time put aside to watching a movie, looking for a movie.
I do this a lot. But you used to do this at the video store.
I was going to say, you used to be the worst at the video store.
I'd just go to the video store for ages. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'd be making exhaustion decisions. You'd be trying to get those $7 for $11 rentals, and
everyone
last
else,
two were really hard.
Everyone else in your group just gives up and says, whatever you want, Sheridan, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad those days are behind us.
Anyway, so you're in one. Well, they're not really, because I'm doing it now from the comfort of my own.
Home. I can go away for hours and play Civilization.
So you're searching, and then, you see, there's a new Deadpool movie out. And you think, there must be. It mustn't be all real. I didn't expect there to be an entirely new, amazing Deadpool movie. And it's got a sort of Christmas promotion.
I did think it was odd. I was like, you would have thought there would be more hype about a Deadpool movie.
Yeah, so I was sort of suspect. I was like, it must be something sort of up with this.
But they charged full freight for it.
But I was like, sweet, new Deadpool. Get into it. Full price. But it's not a new Deadpool, is it?
No.
It is.
It's less Deadpool, with added on Fred Savage tied to a bed talking to, like the real Fred Savage, talking to Deadpool about the art of movie making and the craft of movie making.
So apparently what happened was, who produced Deadpool? Fox or?
Yeah, Fox.
Yeah. So Fox have been trying...
Under license from Marvel, as they discuss at some length.
Yeah. It gets quite meta. Has been trying to get Ryan Reynolds, who must be an EP or have a significant amount of influence.
I think he owns the whole vehicle. I think he produced it as well. Yeah.
He doesn't direct it, though, but... It's directed by someone who did skills. Fast and the Furious and John Wick movies and all those.
Yeah.
Mediocre.
Kaboom, boom.
Yeah, enjoyable kind of action movies.
What we used to call a Friday night popcorn movie.
Exactly. Have been trying to get Ryan Reynolds. So Fox have been trying to get Ryan Reynolds to make a PG-13 version of Deadpool since the beginning of the franchise, because apparently kids love Deadpool, but they're not allowed to watch him.
It's a constant fight in cinemas, in that parents keep bringing their underage kids to see it, and cinema staff in this country, we're talking about, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kids, have to argue with grown adults about why they're not allowed to let their kids into the cinema. It's quite ugly.
And I can actually sort of see why parents probably think these films are okay for kids, because there's a lot of snappy dialogue. He's inherently, a good guy. He's not a bad guy. There's a wisecracker. There's a lot of morality kind of in the movies.
The violence is at a level where he's very close to being a villain, or at least an anti-hero. But
they are very violent movies, and they have a lot of swearing and a lot of sexual innuendo. One. So this one doesn't.
They amped up the innuendo, though. I mean, there was it felt like 10 minutes where they just talked about having gay sex.
Yeah, well,
I mean, they were doing it just to annoy Fox, as far as I could tell.
There's an ongoing joke in the movie about how much they're allowed to swear or how many violent scenes they're allowed to have for it to be rated PG-13, and they're constantly skating this line, which I guess is what kids probably want, really. They're not going to want a Disney version of Deadpool. That's not what they're going for.
I would say that if you're a parent and you weren't happy with your kids watching full-strength Deadpool, there's going to be a lot that you're not going to be very happy about in this.
But it is a PG movie.
It is legally a PG movie, yes. But I'm still saying you're going to be regretting it, particularly when you have to explain that very lengthy scene where Fred Savage describes in detail the kind of sex he wants to have with another man.
Yes. So, anyway, so they've been trying to make this movie, and finally Ryan Reynolds said, I will make a PG-13 version of Deadpool if you let me donate all of the profits, which actually that's probably wrong. I'm sure it's not all of the profits. A share of the profits to charity, and you let me kidnap Fred Savage. And they allowed him to do this.
I don't think Fred Savage was actually kidnapped.
No. So basically the setup for the movie is Fred Savage has been kidnapped by Deadpool.
Yes.
And is recounting.
Then Deadpool is telling the story of Deadpool 2 to Fred Savage.
And it's shown in flashback.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that a flashback? A retelling?
Yeah.
So you're essentially watching Deadpool 2 with most of the violence and most of the swearing and most of the sexual innuendo cut out. And every time there is a violent scene or a portion they can't put in, they stick a scene in where Fred Savage kind of comments on the story.
And they do a lot of quite heavy film deconstruction.
It is. There's actually some really funny...
This is, if you've seen the Deadpool 2, this is... You're actually watching it for these bits.
Yeah.
But then this is pretty much what you used to get on a DVD commentary.
Yes.
So I paid full price for the commentary.
In some ways, if I had have known I was rewatching Deadpool 2 in this way, I would have been less angry, because about 25 minutes in,
you started Googling.
I was like, I think we're watching Deadpool 2, but without all the swearing. And you're like, I think we are too. And I'm like, no, we can't be. It's rubbish, whatever, BS, yada, yada, ranty. And I Googled it and found out that, yes, this is what I was watching. But if I had known, I probably would have, analysed it a little more and not been so angry. But I think in some ways it's a better movie.
I was going to say that. I think it is definitely a significantly better movie. The pacing, everything's a lot tighter. You can pay attention and actually understand the plot. Significant moments that got lost in the carnage have a chance to breathe.
And Fred Savage is very quite charismatic and a good actor, which, I mean, we don't see him in anything anymore because he's basically behind the scenes now. But he's really good. It was nice seeing him in a film, and the commentary, like, they point out a lot of the flaws with the Deadpool movie, and you're like, yeah, that's why I thought the Deadpool movie wasn't that good.
I mean, they literally reprised what we said in this podcast about the lazy writing gags. Yeah. So that was very satisfying.
Yeah. So it's very self-aware.
Yeah. And there were, I mean, for the comic book nerds, they actually have Fred Savage get very excited about Cable's origin story. And if you're a Marvel nerd, Cable's so important. But at which they just sort of had him as this sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger like character in Deadpool 2, and in this he's given context. Which, considering the character's quite taciturn and surly and mostly just grunts and shoots things, I mean, it was delivered in a way that only it was movie nerds, not movie nerds, comic book nerds nodding at each other the way it was delivered. But anyway,
yeah.
So I think it's a rip-off, and people are angry, and I share that anger. At the same time, I actually kind of liked watching Deadpool 2.
If you have not seen Deadpool 2,
this is the better one to watch.
I would probably watch this.
Yeah.
And we have also seen, like, people on Facebook getting really excited that they can watch Deadpool with their kids, because obviously for them they're quite happy to trust the PG-13 rating and be like, cool.
Yeah, they'll regret it later. But,
I actually, to be honest with you, I disagree. But I mean, it has a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, there is still significant amounts of blood and guts, though.
No,
they brought it way down from an Olympian level to, a mildly still a lot.
Well, there's a couple of scenes, but I don't. Do you only think that though because you've seen the full version, so you kind of like getting it mixed up in your head?
Heads being chopped off and limbs flying all over the place, and Deadpool getting torn in two by the Juggernaut.
Yeah, but it's not as gory.
No, it's not as gory, but there's still plenty of gore.
It's a PG level.
Yeah.
PG level.
And apparently it was also to get into the Chinese market.
Yes, interestingly, because they don't
let
allow
our movies.
Yeah, our movies over there. So Fox were like, this is a huge untapped market, and people really want to watch Deadpool in China.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, they've been watching pirated editions in significant numbers. But yeah, look, it's certainly the impact of China on the filmmaking market and world is something I imagine we're going to be talking about in this podcast for years to come, because it's really changing how movies are made and why they're made. And it's part of why there are so many superhero movies, because it's easier to do the overdubbing if everyone's wearing masks.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the American movie business has to diversify because it's not as successful as it once was.
True. So how many stars?
I don't even know. I feel like I need to give it a 1 star for being misleading.
And a rip-off.
But I'm just going to give it... It's hard. I don't know. What are you going to give it?
I'm going to give it a flat 2.5 stars.
I'm going to go 3.
Yeah, okay.
What's next?
Fyre with a Y.
Fyre with a Y.
Now, there used to be a website called Things Bogans Like, and one of its early editions was Let Us Consider the Letter Y. For the international audience, a bogan is a roughly equivalent to an American redneck or an English chav. Yes.
So, for those... I don't know if you know this about me, actually. Mm-hmm. But when the Fyre Festival was happening, I was freaking addicted to looking at this thing on Instagram. The disaster area
on Twitter and Instagram, yeah.
So for those that don't know, this festival was being held in the Bahamas. It had Ja Rule involved, who headlined. Major Lazer was headlining, Blink-182.
Blink-182 come across with more credibility than I was expecting in this film.
They realised it was on the down, and they just said, we can't be involved in this.
Well,
and they publicly pulled out.
They also said, we think our fans deserve a better experience.
They did, so they were straight up. But I mean, they obviously are a professional outfit that have been doing this for years and smelt a rat, you know. So anyway, this guy, Billy McFarland, who is involved in a bunch of entrepreneurial, that's a very hard word to say.
It is, but New York aspirational as well. Like, he'd run a deluxe credit card company with, wine tasting bonus.
So kind of all these
jobbies,
like high profile kind of ventures that would have appealed to rich people, but I'm not sure actually how profitable they were.
Never actual rich people. People who want to be rich.
Well, like the upper middle bogan.
Yeah, well, upper middle bogan in Australia, but definitely upper middle. I mean, the festival attendants who agreed to be interviewed for this, so it's a self-selecting group. They came across as people who don't normally go to festivals, and they thought they might like one with some 5-star accommodation.
These tickets, though, to this festival, so basically to buy a ticket to this festival, you were buying like this whole experience package. So you were buying apparently a chartered jet was going to take you to this island
in private jet, and then they ended up on charter jets. But
this island in the Bahamas that was apparently Pablo Escobar's old island that he used to own, and you're going to live in like a luxurious beach house or villa or a like really, really fancy glamping kind of tent and like have butlers and 5-star like sushi chefs cooking for you. And some of these tickets were like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think most of them were probably around the $20,000 mark.
I think the standard tickets were $3,000, which is a lot of money for a festival. And the economics of festivals, you can easily get $3,000 out of a festival attendee. Not easily, but it's not unheard of. But you don't do it as an upfront payment. You do it by capturing them on all the add-ons and selling them a t-shirt.
Well, they also did this like really desperate thing where they obviously realised they were in financial trouble and couldn't bankroll it, so they told everyone that they need to have these wristbands that they need to load money onto. But they made everyone try and load money on like well before the festival, which, I mean, you'd be alarmed at that.
I'd be alarmed at going to a festival with a wristband system without having it loaded before I got on the plane.
If they weren't going to like the middle of nowhere, like they were going
it was meant to be the middle of nowhere. There was meant to be no way on or off this thing without
it. But there's infrastructure. There was meant to be infrastructure on this island.
I mean, I've got friends who've run festivals up to the you know, 10,000 attendees sort of mark. So within sight of what they were trying to do here.
This was like way bigger than that.
In terms of number of attendees, they were only aiming at something like 20,000.
I thought it was a lot more than that, but yeah, keep going.
Anyway, so I wouldn't say I know people who put on festivals this size, but I've spent a lot of time around people who are in the ballpark of this festival, and it was interesting watching it because the whole let's get really enthusiastic, oh my god, this would be the best place ever to do a music festival, that's a conversation I've been in the room for. And it felt very similar because these guys were videoing themselves on their smartphones all the time.
They were a bunch of self-indulgent
wank. But there's tons of footage of the evolution of this festival and that initial enthusiasm and then the feeling of being out of their depth are feelings that I've seen in a lot of festival organisers, although the ambition of these guys was so great that being out of their depth meant they were totally out of their depth and they couldn't swim to shore.
These people had, though, professional events people.
But they only brought them in with, like, 6 weeks to go before the event, not 6 months.
I mean, they were spending some serious money with highly professional people and ignoring all of the advice of these people.
Yeah, but their timelines were unachievable, so it doesn't matter who you've hired. And trying to do it in island in the Bahamas means your access to infrastructure. Things like, even in Australia, which isn't the biggest jurisdiction in the world, you can still hire 100 porta potties if the calendar's free on that day. Portaloos or what, anyway, portable toilets. You can hire those things, 100 of them. You can't do that in the Bahamas. There's no Bahamian company that can deliver 100 porta toilets to your festival site. So if you don't have concrete plans to build it, you're stuffed. And I mean, I did love the pilot, who came across as a very weird dude. But, he was talking about how, I did all my learning to fly on Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's really great. It's got proper lessons. And then he's doing cartwheels through the sky with everyone screaming. But, he'd been early part of the logistics. Then he got sacked and he was saying, I came up with a plan. We were going to get cruise liners for everyone to stay in. And that was going to solve all of the toilets and logistics and the showers and the catering. And then they just said, nope, no cruise liners. And that's when I left. So, it would have been great if they'd gone with the cruise liner plan. I imagine they just couldn't afford it.
Yeah. But yeah, if anyone watched it unfolding on social media at the time when it was happening, it was pretty funny because it was just... I mean, there's kind of two elements to it that they're like a lot of... The reason why it kind of blew up is a lot of people didn't really have any sympathy for these festival attendees because they were kind of well off and...
Everyone's horrible.
Yeah,
the guys organising the festival are horrible. The guys attending the festival are horrible. I feel really sorry for the Bahamanians.
That didn't get paid.
Well, particularly like the day workers who were sweating out in the sun for a couple of bucks a day that they never got.
Yeah.
And even the bar owner who, I'm not sure I entirely trust her account of events. It still sounds like she had a horrible time dealing with the hordes of drunks that descended on the only bar on the island that was open.
Yeah. So yeah, you kind of on the one hand don't have a lot of sympathy for them, but for the attendees, definitely have sympathy for the workers and employees that didn't get paid. But then you kind of like, this was actually pretty heinous conduct. Like this guy misled a whole bunch of people and took, millions of dollars from festival attendees and didn't pay people when he knew that he should have known, that he reasonably should have known he was not going to be able to deliver on that festival.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say he would have been in some deep stages of denial as it came close. No, I'm not saying it's an excuse at all. And he is, Billy McFarlane is very reflective of a whole generation of...
entitled douchebags.
But also venture capital-fueled tech bros who think they're the master of the universe up until the point that the money they've got to burn can't buy what they promised the people who gave them the money in the first place.
Yeah.
He's a product of his time, but boy, I'm glad I don't know him.
Oh yeah. But it's a good documentary. They have enough people that are close enough to that festival organisation to make it interesting.
Yeah, I think dumping on Billy is definitely a form of revenge for everyone who got shafted in the making of this festival.
Yeah.
I think they were all pretty glad when the documentary makers came along saying, can you tell us your side of the story? They would have been like, oh boy, do I.
Yeah. Because I'm sure a lot of those companies that were involved in it had their name attached to it. And they want to fix that credibility issue up. I mean, to be fair,
there's a lot of
though,
reputation polishing as well. Like the Jerry Media guys being like, "Oh, we tried to act ethically, and they were stopping us." And
I mean, they should have just pulled out, like Blink-182 did when they knew that it was never going to happen. They should have just. But I mean, a lot of them were like, "Well, my contract hinged on me delivering, so I needed to do it in order to get paid."
I honestly think, because I do work somewhat in that line of work, the second the check didn't arrive when it was supposed to, or the check didn't clear, I would have been walking, but I probably would have kept doing my job as long as I was being paid in that situation. Unless I'm, if I'm certifying that, this is going to be a safe and good festival, that's a point where you need to walk away. But if you're
just doing the marketing,
if you're just doing a job and you're still getting paid as you're supposed to, then I think you've got to keep going. I mean, they did get terminated.
I don't think you would do that ethically. I think you're a bit better.
I still like getting paid,
Probably would have been looking for another job though.
Well, I probably would have done what the Jerry Media guys were doing that they got sacked for, where they started saying, we can't make these responses to the public on social media on your behalf because we don't think they're true.
Yeah.
And then 20 minutes later, they got terminated. They got told to hand over the credentials to the websites, and they were done. I think but that was their side of the story as well.
Yeah.
And they're definitely casting themselves in the best possible light because that's their job. Anywho, how many stars are you giving Fyre?
I was really keen to watch this, and I thought it delivered, so I'm going to give it 4 stars.
Now, halfway through, you were questioning their choice of talent.
What do you mean, sorry?
But when we were watching it, halfway through, you're like, they really should get more of the attendees.
I agree. I think they should have probably had more attendees.
But they did load those guys into the back half of the doco as well.
Yeah, and I think it's probably just that the attendees that were presented they're not very likeable.
No, I mean, I did think watching this that part of what makes festivals like this work is saying to people, you bring your own tent and sort out your own shelter and bedding. So you're not having to worry about 10,000 people's shelter and bedding.
These people wouldn't have done that, though.
Yeah, and also they handle the food by saying to the caterer, pay us a concession fee, and then you make money by selling food. So it's in the catering company's interest to bring enough food. But
it was clear the reason they didn't do any of that is because these people have never organised a festival, so they didn't know how to do it.
Sure, but the point is you distribute the work and the risk, and you distribute the reward. And on a well-run festival, lots of people make money.
Yeah.
But lots of people share in the risk and do the work. And that's how you do them so that they don't end in horrible disaster. All right, then I'm going to give, I reckon, 3.5 stars. I was a little bored in patches, but in general it was interesting seeing a glorious crash of a tech bro. I think the world's going to get more and more hungry for those stories as time goes on.
Okay, what's next?
Titans, which is a very intimidating sounding title. So
I haven't watched this, so I just get to ask you questions about it.
Sure.
I don't even know what it's about.
Okay, why don't you ask me?
What's it about?
So, in the 80s and 90s, there was a comic book, more the 80s, 70s and 80s, I should say, called Teen Titans, which featured the follow-on to Robin of Batman and Robin fame and his buddies, and they lived in Teen Titan Tower.
Wow, it was not... I gotta say, that's not where I saw this going.
And this is because Marvel is no longer doing shows with Netflix because they're moving all their stuff to the Disney Channel because they've been bought by Disney. So Netflix has turned around to DC, the other biggest name in comic books. And in some ways, DC's traditionally been a bigger name in comic books. They just haven't made very good movies in recent years, which has let them down. But they do still have a significant catalogue of interesting titles. And the Teen Titans is certainly one of them. Well, they've taken the teen bit out, and there's a couple of teenagers in this, but most of them are definitely grown-ups, possibly in their 30s. So Robin has left Batman and is now a police detective, although, as with many a hero thing, he seems to be allowed to leave bodies lying around with not a lot of follow-up.
So who plays Robin?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I'll Google it.
The acting cast is pretty good, and it starts off really well. It's quite brutal in the action scenes, like Robin's grinding people's faces through broken glass, and he's definitely not the boy wonder anymore. And I was pretty happy with it up until about episode 4, and then it did this thing which Luke Cage has done and Jessica Jones has done, where the story just stops moving forward and the whole thing sort of drifts off sideways, and it ends up being a bit boring.
Is it
Brenton Thwaites?
Yeah, he's an Australian actor.
Oh, there you go.
He was in the remake of Blue Lagoon.
Oh, God. Yeah, he's doing well. He's got the Hollywood look.
And Home and Away, which
Yeah.
for our overseas viewers is
for
probably
Home and Away,
a little
but
bit...
Days of Our Lives.
It's a little bit more family orientated, I think, than Days of Our Lives. But anyway, it's an Australian soap drama.
Yeah. So it just fell into the Netflix disease, and at this stage, you've got to say it's a Netflix disease of trying to turn these superhero stories into overly long.
These people don't look like they're in their 30s. These are all little babies.
Some of them are. Some of them are older. But anyway, the audience can't see what you're looking at, so why don't we engage in conversation?
I'm just Googling. It's research on the fly. So, keep going.
Well, as I was saying, a strong premise and a really interesting intro. Felt like once again they got renewed halfway through, and then suddenly the material they had for 10 episodes had to stretch over 20.
Which is the Netflix problem. I'm so sick of this.
Yeah.
Because, I kind of get it, right? Like, I get it. Like, I get the economics of it, right? That they're just, like, they have to have you watching as many hours as possible because that's how you feel like you have value for money, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, they have the chance to actually reinvent TV series. They don't need to stick to this kind of season-long length. You can just make something really decent that's 8 episodes. And
or
then
4.
maybe if it's really, really good, people will rewatch it. And then they feel like they've got value for money.
Yeah, because none of these shows anyone is ever going to watch a second time.
No one's rewatching it.
Yeah. And that's a shame because there is usually some hidden depth in any cinematography and details that you don't pick up on the first go. And the fact that we're now drowning in content and we are never going to go back and watch a second time.
Well, and also, to be honest, some of these, I'm like, I'm not even going to watch the whole thing because I've got, like, crap tons coming down the line and I've lost interest in your boring, stretched out drama that's gone for 20 episodes instead of 10.
Yeah. And
I turn off.
Yep. So I think it's a shame. And having said that, I mean, Titan... I don't want to get spoily, but they just drift off on too many side stories, and I would go so far as to say, unless you're a huge fan of the Teen Titans already, or really want to see a gritty what happens next to Robin story, I wouldn't get started on it because you're going to get extremely disappointed halfway through.
Is Robin at least gay?
No, he's boning a lot of women in this.
That's really unfortunate. Because, like, Robin obviously is a gay icon.
Yeah.
And I think to take that away in this day and age...
He does meet...
It's pretty crap.
He does meet Robin Mark II, who could be.
Or maybe he could be, like, bisexual.
Well, if Robin was gay, then that was a... Batman's relationship with him was highly illegal as well. But...
Why? Because he was a kid?
Yeah. In his care.
Oh, I don't think... But this... That's not... I mean, he basically became a gay icon out of the...
Short pants.
The John West Batman series.
Yeah.
And he was an adult in that show.
He was still the teen wonder.
Yeah, but he was just... I mean, he was played by an adult man.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
And I think at the time, our gay friends didn't have a lot of TV characters that they could...
relate to
or admire. And so Robin... became a gay icon.
Okay, he might be, but I don't think you can cast Robin with Robin's character as a gay character with Batman without hitting a huge number of problems that this show was not trying to tackle.
I have to realise, too, that by starting this conversation, I've now gotten myself to a point where...
You might have to watch it.
No, I've gone, like, too far on something I don't really know a lot about. I feel like I need, like, some... gay friends to tell me about whether or not Robin really, really was that much of a gay icon, but that was my understanding, and so I might have just, like, gone into some depths of knowledge that I'm not that familiar with.
Okay.
But I feel as though people will see the intention's good, which is how everyone gets out of everything bad that they do.
Oh, that or prison. So do you have any more questions you want to ask me about Titans?
So is there going to be a new series?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
I mean, basically Netflix is desperate for more superhero content. They've started this one, so if they get the writing done properly for the second series, then I guess it'll be the classic thing where the second series is stronger than the first because they know what they're making at the start. But the Hawk and Dove stuff, that stuff confused me as a teenager. It confuses me now. It makes no sense.
So how many stars are you giving it?
1. Because I'm
1?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very cross with the digressions.
Cool, okay.
Yeah, it's a shame. Could have been good.
So don't watch that one, kids.
Could have been good, should have been good, but it's just going to waste your time. Okay, so that is the end of
Although, we should talk about the Razzies.
Oh, we should talk about the Razzies, because some movies that we like have been nominated.
Although, I've just looked up So the Meg, which is has been nominated in the remake category, I think, as a remake of Jaws.
The nods were quite significant.
They were, but as I said, I think in the review, I felt like it was a remake of Jaws 1, 2 and 3, but all like crunched together.
Yeah, I think the Razzie committee doesn't care about those technicalities.
Yes. I'm just looking up what we rated it, and I rated it 2 stars. So
right.
I didn't like it that much.
I didn't think it was I didn't think it was a bad movie as much as it was exactly what it was trying to be, which was a big dumb movie with a shark in it.
I feel like a 2-star dumb movie with a shark. I would still watch that. But if someone gave like a Cate Blanchett movie 2 stars, I wouldn't watch that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to watch like serious movie that's crap.
Yeah, the Razzie might even be good for its marketing.
Yeah, I probably agree.
I'd put that on the poster maybe. But,
and so the other one that was nominated was the Melissa McCarthy movie
Life of the Party.
Yeah, she was nominated for Best Actress.
Melissa McCarthy's role was what the Razzies were having a go at, not the movie as a whole. Which I think was unfair. I thought the comic timing in this was delightful. I thought the character was good. I don't quite see what the Razzies have a problem with this, but what do we know? We're just people who talk in a podcast.
And what did we give that? I don't know. I didn't write a record of it. I think I probably gave it something like 3 stars.
Yeah,
feels like a 3.
Too hard to go back and listen to it. Although you listeners definitely should. Sheridan can't be bothered, but you should. I would also like to say, dear listener, as we approach the end of this podcast, that if you could, if you're listening to us via the Apple Podcast app, if you could drop us a review, it would be immensely helpful for us for growing the audience. And also, if you want to get in touch, email gmtrpodcast@gmail.com or leave a comment in any of the numerous social media in which we appear.
All right. Thanks, folks.
Good night.
See you next week.